pockets of invention and creativity are popping up all over the world. And wherever there's potential that's yet to be unleashed, a tool like Kano, which is affordable, which demystifies computing and empowers people to code in a simple and fun way, that tool will be relevant and, start people on a journey to becoming masters of their own destiny in a world where your creative output is immediately accessible to anyone on the network, where you can get 4G internet on Mount Everest, where computers cost less than curling irons. The majority of the world is now able to do what only the minority of the world was able to do even 10 years ago. And so, the Kano idea, make it yourself, don't just use it, is accessible and relevant, far from the traditional closed sealed domains of the few who have had mastery over technology to date.
You're listening to Tickets, a podcast series featuring the visionaries, producers and operators behind some of the world's most exciting and innovative live experiences. Joining the dots between disciplines, Tickets seeks to find out what goes into bringing amazing ideas, companies and concepts to life. In this, our second season, we're exploring the future of education and how emerging forms of technology and entertainment are changing the ways we learn and interact. My name's Howard Gray and I'm your host. What have Harry Potter, Steve Wozniak, Los Angeles County School Board and the Indian Prime Minister got in common? They've all been part of the story of Kano, a London-based computer company intertwining technology, education and entertainment. Today on Tickets, I'm joined by Kano's co-founder Alex Klein. We talk about the future of collective experiences, overcoming the dark times as an entrepreneur, the key ingredients of a compelling Kickstarter campaign, and how a 6-year-old's question was the catalyst for what has become one of the most exciting new computer companies around. Alex's thoughts on using creativity to mobilise and empower people are really inspiring. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So maybe just to kick us off, could you briefly introduce Kano for listeners who may be not too familiar with what you do?
Sure. So Kano is a computer company, and we create computer encoding kits for all ages. We let you build your own technology. Our software on board teaches you how to code, music, art, games, applications, magic spells. And then you visit our online world where you can share your creations with others, with millions of people around the world. So you can think of it as the Lego of computing, the company that takes what happens inside technology and makes it simple and fun for anyone to understand and shape.
I was looking at the website a few days ago and discovered the kind of annotated origin story on there from Mika's kind of question at the beginning through to judo teachers and then like trips to China and all sorts of other adventures. Could you maybe just take us briefly through kind of how did all this come about in the first place?
Yeah, so I started my career as a journalist. I was working at Newsweek Daily Beast and New York Magazine and Newsweek, and I was focused on really demystification of finance, technology. I covered Occupy Wall Street and Mitt Romney's tax returns and real estate scams at the Church of Scientology. And the world at the time was filled with optimism surrounding technology and pessimism surrounding big finance and the banks and the hedge funds. And so over the course of my writing exploits, what I really enjoyed doing was looking into areas of society where people keep things concealed, whether it's cults or, communists or corporates, and using a good story, an illustration or a design, an infographic, an interview, an anecdote to reveal and bring to life some of the secret rules that make the world work. So I did that in the form of writing. And in 2013 and 2012 as well, the world of the written word, at least for publication, started to change, and journalism started to lose its revenues and its employees due to Facebook and clickbait and aggregation. And Newsweek, where I was working at the time, shut their print magazine. I left. I went to the UK and tried to become an academic. The thing you do when you're not sure what you'll do next. And whilst at Cambridge, I encountered this piece of technology, this brain, this board called the Raspberry Pi, this like open source chipset that hackers were sending into space and under the ocean. And it was this really powerful little piece of modern computing that anyone in the world could kind of look at and marvel at, but not anyone in the world could necessarily understand and build and code. And long story short, took that piece of technology, which a bunch of cool makers were using, showed it to my little cousin Mika, who was 6 years old at the time, and he gave the challenge that led to the creation of Kano as a product and as a business. He said, "Oh, this is cool, this little chip, but can I make my own computer with it?" And we were like, "Yeah, you could make a computer. Well, so what would that be like?" And he said, "Well, can it be like Lego? I'd want it to be as simple and fun as Lego, so no one teaches me." And that was kind of like, whoa, there's nothing around the world that existed that was quite like that. A computer you build and code yourself like Lego that had, real power to make websites and arts and games and apps and servers, but that had the simplicity and fun of a classic video game. And so we started to work on that first to fulfill Mika's challenge. I was introduced to my co-founder, started working with one of the software developers from the PlayStation 4 team. We created this end-to-end kit. We were sourcing components from Alibaba, hand folding cardboard boxes in our little flat in North London, getting lots of paper cuts. I ended up dropping out of graduate school. And in November of 2013, we threw it on Kickstarter just to kind of see what would happen, to see if we could raise enough money to make 1,000 more kits. And we ended up raising not $100,000, but 15 times as much, $1.5 million. And that really initiated, and even today, there are tons of campaigns that kind of borrow from and are inspired by the creative computing story that we took to the platform. That burst of energy turned coding and STEM and all these slightly boffin-esque worlds into something that was kind of accessible and digestible, and that initiated the mass production of the computer kit, which has since sold over 300,000 units since shipping in September 2014 to 86 countries. And now we make a whole range of computer and coding products and apps, and basically experiences that demystify technology, from Harry Potter magic wands to magical motion sensors to speakers to pixels and screens, and our own operating system that kind of takes you into the computer's brain and opens it up for you to control. But that's kind of the origin story. And there were lots of strange happenings and mistakes along the way, of course.
Awesome. I love that story. Also, I think it's important that you noted that there are many paper cuts that come with being an entrepreneur, particularly working with hardware. So I guess there's so many follow-up areas to go in from that. But something that you mentioned when you talked about Kickstarter, that you raised 15 times what you set out to. What do you think may be some of the things that caught the imagination of people when you were expecting to raise 100,000 and raise 15 times that? What were some of the factors that you think contributed to that suddenly just going kind of so successfully for you?
I think there are three major factors that contributed to the organic success of that campaign. The first was an emphasis on a mass market, a mainstream, and a really clear and simple message. A lot of technologies come to market, and particularly crowdfunding, with a sort of tech first, tech above all, look at this amazing innovation, look at this amazing disruption message. And ours was more about what the technology enables, what coding is a means to do, than the end of technology in and of itself. So the headline was a computer anyone can make. The subhead was make a computer, learn to code, create the future. the stories and interviews were really honestly shot, really cinema verite. Um, the photos were clearly laid out and labeled. The section headers were a series of questions, almost like an FAQ, the classic George Orwell: what, why, how, when, and who. And we were really sort of direct and clear and honest about who we were and why we were doing it. And I think that appealed to people in a world of many competing messages and so many demands on your pocketbook. This was, a way to pick up a product that had an authentic personality, that stood for something big, which was this idea of anyone being able to make technology and create technology, not just use it, and presented by a group of people who clearly really cared about it. So I think that authenticity and that breadth of the message, not just targeting a tech elite, but anyone, I think that's factor one. Anyone can make. Factor two was the geographic diversity of the campaign. We translated our books into 10 different languages. We traveled to Sierra Leone and Shenzhen and Seattle and, all around the world with these really hacky prototype kits, and found wherever we went, anyone, any age was entranced by this idea of, one, looking inside a computer, two, building it yourself, and three, making it do something new. And there was a real universality to that transcended how most people think about marketing, which is in terms of niches and market segments, in terms of geographies and age ranges. I think the breadth of the geography was important. And I think number three, we also picked up a lot of momentum early on the quality of the video, which was retweeted and by lots of people, from the founder of Kickstarter to Mayor Boris Johnson and Mayor Mike Bloomberg, and even Steve Wozniak bought a couple kits for himself. So that video was, amazingly enough, was shot really on the fly. It was me, my co-founder, our filmmaker friend Leo. We showed up at a Hackney playground at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. We improvised the script. It was two guys in a playground on a swing set, on a seesaw, on a slide, talking about a new kind of computing and the problem we face today, which is a society that spends a third of its time looking at sealed screens, but only 1/100,000th of the population, 1% of 1%, knows what goes on behind those screens and can influence them in a new way. And so we were able to combine a bit of whimsy with a bit of grandeur in a way that I think appealed to a mass market audience, B, people all around the world, and C, a few influential people who helped us get our message going.
There's a real kind of lightness and authenticity to that video. It's on the website for anyone who wants to go and check it out, and it's also one of my local parks as well. So I used to live just down the road, so I knew it very well. When I first saw it, I recognised it. In that kind of first year or so you you raised this Kickstarter round, this kind of campaign that went really, really well, and then obviously then the really hard work starts of starting to kind of scale this up a little bit. What were the kind of assumptions you made in that first year, whether they proved kind of true or false? Which assumptions did you guys make when you were starting to kind of think about how you actually go and bring all this to market?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I think early on we assumed at times that there was no limit to the number of extensions we could make at any given time to the computer kit. And because we actually quite quickly were able to develop in 9 months a product that won the Red Dot Design Award, was incredibly favorably reviewed, went on to sell another 25,000 units that first year after its campaign. And right after that, we decided to do an add-on kit, a pixel board that would just sit on top of the Raspberry Pi and turn it into something new. And that product, I think we just assumed it would be a hit because the first one went so well. And I think rather than building on a fresh use case and a fresh idea, it built on what was already there. It had kind of that sophomore album syndrome. And, I think that was an assumption that we had to revisit and change. And, this year, for instance, we went in a very different direction. We extended our computer kit and turned it into a tablet that you make yourself. And, that's that computer kit has gone through dozens of iterations over the past 4 years. But this year we created something completely different, a magic wand with a bunch of sensors inside that you build yourself and use to cast spells on a screen. And that, that was not a computer, right? It wasn't something that could display apps and software, something that relies on an existing computer that you have, whether it's a Kano or an iPad or an Android tablet. And that actually has been a really successful change for us to not only have a core computer, but to have other buildable, codable experiences that connect to other computers. So I think that was one learning, to be bold enough to just explore a different archetype and a different way of doing things. Another assumption that we made at the beginning was that we could just throw everything over the fence to a subcontractor in China and they would kind of build it for us. And that assumption was proven wrong. To manufacture successfully, cost efficiently, and at high quality at scale, you really have to take on a lot of ownership yourself. And so today, at the time we worked with a single contract manufacturer. Today we work with a network of suppliers across China and Taiwan. We manage our relationships with all of them directly. We negotiate even with some of their subcontractors. And I think that learning that, if you're going to build a really successful computer company and product-oriented business, you need to take direct ownership of how the product is built. That carries through today.
It feels like maybe a good time to briefly segue into kind of how the hardware works. So maybe for someone who isn't too familiar with computer hardware particularly, could you maybe explain how a Kano is built? Which parts are open source? You mentioned the Raspberry Pi. Which bits are bespoke, and how you guys think about kind of bringing this all together into a kind of cohesive product?
Yeah, sure. So, when you get a Kano kit, you open it up, and inside, beautifully arrayed, are a set of buildable components that we actually design all of them end to end ourselves. The computer kit has a version of the Raspberry Pi in it that we've actually customized. And then a step-by-step illustrated storybook, a bit like a manga or a comic, demystifies for you with just 2 lines of copy on each page and a lovely illustration what each component does, how you can put them together. So you plug together, the brain, the battery, the speaker, the sensor, the cables, the buttons, the screen, the touch component. And as you go, different parts are like lighting up and making sounds. And at the end, you've got a fully fledged working tablet. It comes to life. The operating system, our software, lights up the screen. It starts talking to you and telling you step by step to input some commands that will set up your account, connect to Wi-Fi. You'll start connecting some code blocks to paint the background, add some clouds. You'll then be launched into a world of creative applications, from make music to make art to hack Minecraft to Terminal Quest. All of those are embedded within a shared software layer called Kano World, where you can compete with others, collaborate, share your creations, like and remix. All of the code that's shared on Kano World is open source, so you can really endlessly remix and bring new songs or castles or magic carpets or Pong games or space station trackers or beat machines down onto your computer, made by other people in the community, and remix it and change it. So that's kind of the flow of the experience for the computer kit. And then, if you have a Pixel kit, it's similar. It's a $79 kit. And so it doesn't give you a full tablet screen. It gives you a grid of 128 beautiful multicolored pixels that you can color and change and use to make animations or cartoons or music visualizers or weather stations that show the weather outside, or goal counters that show how many times your favorite team has scored a goal. And then you can extend any of these products with our sensor kits, which are $29. So you can plug in a motion sensor to one of them, use motion to control your creations. And then last but not least, our wand. If you get that, you've got a beautiful board with a set of microcontrollers and sensors on it that you put together step by step. You plug each into place, you put in a battery, you put on the button, you seal it in a lovely wand with decals and stickers and that you can customize yourself, and with wood grain indentation. Then you connect that over Bluetooth to Kano Code, which is our software again, but now on any machine, and start to cast spells and code your own. So it's an end-to-end product experience, but the basic columns or steps for each: build the device, code it yourself, then share your creations with the world.
Yeah, I love the kind of open source, idea of remixing all these different apps and worlds that other people have built. Am I right in thinking you guys in-house also create apps and challenges yourselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, we create hundreds of hours of content for the device itself. So, on the computer kit Touch, you've got over 40 challenges in Hack Minecraft. You've got 15 touch challenges. You've got over 55 make art challenges. You can really spend hours and hours and hours just going through the stuff that we've made. Over 200 hours at last count on the computer kit. 70 challenges in the Harry Potter kit. But then, yeah, of course, it's the community's creations on top of that add this surprise. We've had kids in Sierra Leone, make radio stations with Kano. We've had kids in Kosovo automate the position of solar panels. Adults in the US make servers and host their own websites with their resumes to try and get a new job. So there's a whole range of surprises that come out of the Kano community that you can then bring into your own creative journey and use to extend the capabilities of your machine.
When you're thinking about designing this content, these challenges, how do the team go about thinking through that, and what have you found works best when sort of blending education and entertainment together?
I think for us, it's about that sense of successive mastery, right? Because the fun factor comes from, flinging a chain of owls that you've created across a screen, or solving a puzzle by setting the gravity in the world to 0 and applying a light wind from the right side of the screen, or seeing someone else's Minecraft fireball and turning it into an ice ball using a tool that you've unlocked in the challenge flow. So I think some of the principles we use: instant gratification. So there's no waiting for your code to compile it. It comes to life live, side by side. Successive mastery and leveling. So as you unlock more and more syntax and pieces of code, you're capable of doing more and more, and your creations look cooler and cooler in the community. We also reward you as you go, not only with new tools, but with customizations for your profile, medals, achievements, ways of uploading your shares and changing them. And yeah, I think that the way we blend entertainment and education is, in a way, combining coding and gaming, because coding in and of itself is very immersive and fun once you start getting into the puzzling nature of it. When you're struggling with syntax errors or struggling to get things to compile, as a lot of people do when they get started, that's no fun. So what we do is we kind of smooth that seam. We step you through your first creations. We really guide you, so you can feel that mastery, get that dopamine blast of having made something, do something new that is interesting and dynamic, whether it's flowing particles or a pulsing beat. And then we reward you with something new that you can do. And slowly but surely, the training wheels come off the bike, and you're making with wild abandon and coming up with emergent creations that are fresh and new and have never been shared.
Do you think that there's probably a use case where adults are pretending to buy this for their kids but are actually buying it for themselves? You mentioned that there's adults who are hosting their own websites. Could you maybe share like some of the stories? You mentioned a couple earlier of some of the creations that have been shared into the Kano universe, and which ones maybe the team have got most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there's adults and there's kids. We had a musician use our motion sensors to make this new kind of instrument, which is almost like a octopus theremin, which is really cool. It's like, an instrument you play just by waving your hands through the air throughout a room. We've had people connect the computer kit to, this was a man in Oklahoma, to time-lapse camera and capture flowers blooming over time. So to make these beautiful visual stories of the growth of plants, almost David Attenborough style. we've had people in the digital realm on the online community make these astonishing like natural phenomena like trees and clouds using generative algorithms and pick up tons of followers from followers who are both kids and adults who are learning from how they develop these systems. And then we have kids as well who have become sort of mini celebrities in the community who like tell their followers when they're going to go on vacation, because they won't see as many creations from them while they're away, who, run competitions to make their favorite sports team's jersey or their favorite company's logo. And so you get this really nice person-to-person generative quality on the online platform, as well as some really great inventions in the real world.
So we've talked a little bit about kind of, I suppose, direct to consumer, but Kano also has a really obvious and big use case with schools and with educators. Could you maybe explain a little bit, but maybe about how, when it comes to selling to schools, how did you go about getting that moving, and maybe what were the challenges you overcame as you figured out how to work with educators and education institutions?
Education is an important segment for us, and we do work with teachers and distributors and administrators all over the world. I mean, we partnered with the District of Alpharetta, Georgia. We're cooking something up with the LA County School District. We're in over 4,000 schools now, and we're actually part of the national curriculum in Argentina, which brought in computer kits and computer kit completes to schools across the country. And what we found is it's most successful when it's solving not only a coding problem for the teacher or a STEM and technology problem, but a computing problem. Like, budgets are being cut worldwide for classroom tools and technologies, and one role Kano plays is simply as a low-cost PC that can browse the internet, do Excel and Google Drive, and we've made sure that the experience we deliver on the computer kit is one that is not merely about coding and about STEM, but also one that really naturally and with a strong experience introduces you to mainstream apps. Working with education is a totally different cycle to direct to consumer. It's longer lead time for sales, more standards to be met, but we have an amazing education community manager, Taylor, as well as partnerships with a range of other institutions and corporates, from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to number 10 Downing Street. I mean, Theresa May took the computer kit to Bangalore, India, built it and coded it alongside Prime Minister Modi, and endorsed it on her first trip to India, which helped us there and helped us in the UK. So there's a balance to be set between the kind of top down. We work with GitHub, we work with Kahoot, and then the bottom up, going to teachers, ensuring that you're giving them something that doesn't just fit with the prevailing trend, which is code and computing education, but also works for their core curriculum subjects as well.
I really love the international focus as you were speaking there. Every year from India to Argentina to Los Angeles to the UK. I suppose that Kano is able to transcend curriculum and cultures and language barriers because of the nature of the kit, and that it's built to be open, right?
Yeah, I think that was always the premise, that the majority of the world is rising in a way. There's a change in center of gravity happening in the world today, and it's not as if one country is going to prevail over the other previous superpower, the United States, still a superpower to be fair, but it's more that pockets of invention and creativity are popping up all over the world. And wherever there's potential that's yet to be unleashed, a tool like Kano, which is affordable, which demystifies computing and empowers people to code in a simple and fun way, that tool will be relevant and start people on a journey to becoming masters of their own destiny in a world where your creative output is immediately accessible to anyone on the network, where you can get 4G internet on Mount Everest, where computers cost less than curling irons. The majority of the world is now able to do what only the minority of the world was able to do even 10 years ago. And so the Kano idea, make it yourself, don't just use it, is accessible and relevant, far from the traditional closed sealed domains of the few who have had mastery over technology to date.
I think that to kind of extend that line of thinking out a little bit more, I'd love to get your thoughts on perhaps advice for founders who are working in this kind of education entertainment area, or more broadly who are looking to start their own businesses. What learnings have you had from your entrepreneurial journey so far?
It's a great question. I mean, I think when it seems the darkest and when it seems the hardest, that's oftentimes the moment where, without knowing it, you're creating your next great bolt out of the blue and your next great success. I mean, we have had in recent months a massive, I don't want to sound, I mean, this probably won't help if anyone's struggling out there, but we struggle too, like a lot. We've had a huge success with this wand that we've brought to market, um, and there were a lot of times where the technological requirements of that product, the distribution requirements, we had to lift our game from where we were to get to that place. And, we now have a whole set of much more, much bigger partners, much stronger distribution channels as a result of some of the hard work we did and the hard choices we made at that time. And the high quality of that product is a testament to the fact that we just kind of gritted it out a bit. We were resilient. And it's something everyone says, but like resilience in the startup context. I think if you're creating something in the realm of education and entertainment, it's so easy to be boring. I would just advise anyone who's working on it, just like, don't be boring, like don't be too worthy. People need to authentically love the product and be compelled to return to it in almost a compulsive and addictive way, but in a good way, in a way that's healthy for them. And that's one of the hardest things to do. And if you're working on something like that, I just give you massive respect, because it would be very easy for people to go out and work on Gmail add-ons and apps and subscription dog walking platforms. But the hardest thing you can do is engage someone's attention in a way that is good for their mind long term. And it's also the most important thing that we can do now as a society in the wake of what the majority of consumer technology and product making has focused on in the last 10 years, which is certainly engaging people's attention, but to a not very productive social, political, cultural, and educational end. So bear it out, because it's important, and because as you bear it out, especially at this time in history, things are moving so fast. It's almost like the period following the French Revolution. Opportunities are just opening all over the place, and just staying in the game, you will find opportunities to score. So, yeah, I guess that's the advice I'd give.
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really, really interesting kind of way of thinking about it. Maybe let's switch up a little bit back into kind of where you're at. Which experiences, technologies, ideas, whether within Kano, whether within education, whether within entertainment, may be completely different. What's got you most excited right now?
I think the notion of new forms of audience building and new ways of bringing people together to have a shared experience sounds a bit broad, but let me draw an example. Like, when I was a kid, I saw the movie The Matrix in movie theaters, and it's a movie made by Warner Brothers, who's now a fantastic partner of ours. And you go to the movie theater, you sit there with everyone, and you see The Matrix. And I walked out of that movie, it was like a religious experience for me, because it was such a powerful hero's journey about a world where these secret codes run beneath the surface of the day to day, and you can learn to see them and write them and change your reality, and get the girl and learn kung fu and fly a helicopter, which was very cool to me at the time. Um, and I had that shared experience with my friends, and we talked about it, and then we were all really excited for the Matrix Revolutions, or the Matrix Reloaded, which was the next one, and that came out, wasn't quite as good, and we saw it at the same chain of movie theaters. And now things are different. Now it's like an analog would be going onto Fortnite, and if you go to one of the screens in Fortnite, there's actually a calendar in Fortnite, in one of the main three screens that shows you week to week what's dropping into this new world and how you can use that new thing to your advantage. And I think what's getting me excited is this notion of collective play and creation spaces that are always on. That there is no movie theater showtime. There is no movie starts and ends 2 hours later. And I think it represents a massive challenge to conventional content distributors. Like, imagine the world we're in now is not like Warner Brothers makes the movie and AMC shows it. It's like, Netflix makes the movie and Netflix shows it, right? So Netflix owns both the content and the distribution. Platforms like Kano are doing the same, and that's kind of why we embarked on a project that has a component of hardware and has a computer in the middle, because you're not going to create an intelligent entertainment experience within the confines of an iPhone platform alone or a browser platform alone, which has basically been designed to track your movements and track your eyeballs so it can serve you ads. You need to have your own platform, your own movie theater that you build and operate in accordance with your values and your design philosophy and your business model. And so what gets me excited are end-to-end spaces and platforms that over time bring people together in a somewhat curated space, but a space that is curated and controlled, not to be a walled garden for ease of use, but to be a vibrant rainforest for collective production of new content and ideas. And so I think that's something that gets me really excited about the next few years. I think also that the next generation is almost preternaturally disposed to enjoying and relishing these kind of spaces because they don't remember a time before the internet. They've been born into the internet. And I think, the way they play and the way they entertain themselves will always have this collaborative and generative and calendarized element.
Yeah, I think that the calendarized element's fascinating. I completely agree with you with this kind of open sandbox way of thinking about it. I suppose a challenge that a lot of kind of incumbents have got is thinking around event-based things as well. So do you either focus on a very important one-off event, or do you default to open, or somewhere in the middle? And obviously the middle ground has been the kind of traditional, the Matrix movie is screened at 3 p.m, 5 p.m, and 7 p.m, and that's it. But is that enough? So I'm really interested to see where that kind of spectrum ends up moving towards. I think it will move towards open ahead of kind of the one-off events, but I'm fascinated to see how it's going to kind of play out in the next few years. So I guess like in kind of on that note, I'd be fascinated to know what you'd love to be building next, or maybe what you are building next. What's coming up for Kano in the next year or so?
It's a good question. I mean, we've got a lot of new opportunities now with the scale that we have, and we may have to say no to a few of them, which is painful for me because part of the fun of Kano is like it is broad and it touches many spaces. But I think what you'll see from us, we'll continue to advance the computer kit. We'll take it into spaces that are to 2019 what Raspberry Pi and Internet of Things was to 2013. So we'll be demystifying decentralized networks. We'll be demystifying voice and AI and the blockchain. We'll be giving people ways of extending their coding abilities, to new libraries, new frameworks, even new languages. We'll have other products, not unlike the ones you've seen from us in the past that not only work with the computer kit, but work with iOS and Android and other devices, but present our own software experience within them. And you're going to be seeing us in new markets as well. You're going to be seeing us leveraging what we've done successfully in the US and the UK to continue our growth and ensure that when you think of coding, When you think of building a computer, when you think of playful, creative technology for beginners, you think of Kano, wherever you are.
So just before we wrap, I'd love to just hear where the best kind of 2 or 3 places are online to find out more for someone who's maybe their interest is piqued and they wanted to find out a little bit more about what you do and maybe what's the best representation to grasp exactly what Kano is all about. Where would you recommend people head?
Well, you're a mensch. Thanks for asking me that. That's really appreciated. So yeah, number one, check out our website, kano.me, Kano.me. We're actually running for the next couple of weeks some really exciting deals on the Harry Potter coding kit, which lets you build a wand, the computer kit, which lets you build a computer, and the computer kit touch, which lets you build a tablet. So go to kano.me, learn about the products. Always happy to hear from anyone with thoughts or questions. My email is alex@kano.me. Check out Time Magazine as well. We were just listed as one of the best inventions of the year by Time Magazine. You can get a good write-up on our coding wand with Harry Potter. And check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Kano Computing. Tons of videos. You can see Steve Wozniak talk about the kit, Bill Nye. You can see different projects and inventions that are possible with Kano, and maybe give us some ideas and leave a comment. But really appreciate that shout, because it's an important time of the year for us, obviously. So
yeah, we're recording this on Cyber Monday. It should be noted.
Exactly. Yeah. So, come give us your custom, and you won't be disappointed. And even if you don't give us your custom this year, have a look, and you can even try the software for free, I should mention, at kano.me/code. And you can see what the community is creating at world.kano.me. That's Kano World.
Brilliant. Alex, it's been such a pleasure chatting. Thank you so much for your time, and we've covered all sorts of different areas. I'm fascinated to see where this kind of world moves in the next year or two, and I have a pretty good feeling you guys are going to be right at the front of it.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your having me, and have a great holiday season.
Awesome. You too. Thanks.
Cheers, Howard.
We'll be back next time with another edition of Tickets. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or a rating via your preferred podcast provider, or just tell a friend. And if you have any questions on this episode or suggestions for new ones, please drop me a line. Just head over to howardgray.net, that's Gray with an A, /podcast. Thanks for listening.